You've arrived. Not because you forced your way here, not because you earned it through struggle, not because some cosmic alarm went off declaring you worthy. You've arrived because something inside you stopped fighting. The resistance you carried for so long, the constant questioning, the endless seeking, the need to understand everything before you could move, it's gone quiet. And in that quiet, something remarkable is happening. You're ready to receive. But here's what makes this moment so easy to miss. Readiness doesn't announce itself. There's no certificate, no moment of blinding revelation, no voice from the heavens confirming you've made it. Instead, what you'll notice is simpler, almost too simple. You're here, reading these words, and there's no urgency pulling at you, no desperation to extract meaning, no anxiety that you might miss the point. That absence of pressure, that's the sign. Your system has stabilized enough that information can land without creating turbulence. Let me be clear from the start. Nothing is being downloaded into you right now. There's no energy transfer happening, no frequency activation, no special transmission crossing dimensions to reach you. What's changed isn't what's available to you. What's changed is your capacity to hold what's already here. For months, maybe years, your inner state has been like water constantly disturbed. Every thought created ripples. Every emotion sent waves across your awareness. And in that disturbance, nothing could settle. Clarity couldn't form. Insight couldn't land. Not because you weren't ready, but because the field itself was too unstable to hold anything. But something shifted. Maybe you didn't notice the exact moment. Maybe it happened so gradually that you can't point to when it began. Your attention stopped lurching forward into worry about what comes next. It stopped yanking itself backward into regret about what already happened. It started to rest where it actually is, here, in this present moment, without needing to be anywhere else. This is what we're calling the healing phase, though that word might feel strange. You're not broken. You've never been broken. But your observational field, the lens through which you experience reality, it's been fragmented. And now, for the first time in a long time, it's becoming whole. Not because you fixed it, but because you stopped disturbing it. The quantum field doesn't respond to how badly you want something. It doesn't respond to your effort or your worthiness or how many affirmations you've repeated. It responds to one thing only: the stability of your presence. When your presence fragments under pressure, reality sends back fragmented signals. When your presence holds steady, reality can finally show you what's been there all along. Most people completely bypass this phase. They're waiting for something bigger, something more dramatic, something that feels like transformation should feel. They want the lightning bolt moment, the tears of release, the overwhelming sense that everything has changed. And because they're waiting for that, they walk right past the subtle recalibration that's actually happening. They mistake the quiet for nothing. They confuse the absence of intensity with the absence of movement. But you're different. If you're still here, if these words are landing without creating a need to do anything about them, you're in a different position than you were before. You've crossed an invisible threshold, not into a new level, not into some elevated state, into readiness. The readiness to receive what you've been asking for without collapsing under its weight. Reality doesn't send you what you can't hold. It's not withholding blessings or testing your patience. It's waiting for your field to stabilize enough that what arrives doesn't immediately scatter. And now, quietly, without fanfare, that stabilization has occurred. Your healing phase has begun. Not because you're starting to heal, but because you're finally stable enough to let healing complete itself. What happens when the observer stops breaking itself? This is the question most people never ask, because they don't realize they've been breaking themselves at all. But think about how you've moved through life up until now. Every time something uncertain appeared, your attention fractured. Part of you jumped ahead, trying to predict outcomes. Part of you pulled backward, searching for patterns from the past. Part of you stayed frozen, analyzing whether you were safe enough to proceed. This splitting of attention, this fragmentation, it's what creates the sensation of being stuck, confused, overwhelmed. The field can't respond to fragmentation. It needs a unified point of observation. Not a perfect point, not an enlightened point, just a point that isn't constantly dividing itself against itself. When that unity forms, even temporarily, reality begins to reorganize around it. Not because you're manifesting or attracting or vibrating at a new frequency, because you've finally stopped introducing static into your own signal. Most of the noise you've experienced in life didn't come from outside circumstances. It came from your own observational field collapsing and reconstructing itself multiple times per minute. Each collapse sent out a distorted signal. Each reconstruction tried to compensate for the last distortion. And in that continuous cycle of breaking and rebuilding, clarity was impossible. You weren't receiving garbled messages from the universe. You were receiving clear messages through a garbled receiver. But now something's different. The receiver has steadied. Not through force, not through practice, not through techniques, through exhaustion. You got tired of maintaining the fragmentation, tired of trying to hold yourself together, tired of monitoring every thought and emotion to make sure you were doing it right. And in that exhaustion, you accidentally let go of the very thing that was creating instability. What you'll notice first is a change in your inner rhythm. There's a pause now, barely perceptible, between something happening and you reacting to it. You don't create this pause through discipline. It appears on its own when the compulsion to immediately interpret everything begins to fade. In that pause, the healing phase does its work. Not healing from trauma, though that may happen too. Healing from the habit of self-interference. You're no longer rushing to understand, no longer rushing to decide, no longer rushing to make meaning out of every sensation, every thought, every moment of uncertainty. The mind that once needed instant answers to feel safe has gone quiet enough to allow actual information through. And actual information doesn't come as stories. It comes as knowing. Complete, wordless, requiring no explanation. This is cognitive awareness in its purest form, one of the three channels through which the stabilized observer receives. Information simply arrives whole. There's no building up to it, no deductive reasoning, no connecting dots. You suddenly know something you didn't know before, and that knowing doesn't create excitement or urgency. It just sits there, stable, available whenever you need to reference it. Many people dismiss this because they're conditioned to value emotional knowing. The kind that comes with chills, tears, a sense of profound meaning. But emotional knowing is often the mind creating drama around information it doesn't trust yet. True cognitive awareness is calm, almost boring, and you move forward, and there's no story attached to the knowing. The second channel is spatial awareness. This one's harder to describe because it doesn't operate in words or images. It operates in felt geometry. You sense structure, relationship, distance, alignment. A direction that felt open yesterday now feels closed, and you can't explain why in rational terms. A decision you were agonizing over suddenly has no weight, and again, there's no logical reason, just a felt shift in the internal landscape. This isn't intuition in the mystical sense. It's pattern recognition operating below conscious thought. Your system is reading coherence and incoherence in real time, mapping relationships between elements in your life, and feeding you information as spatial orientation. When you're in alignment with something, you feel expansion. When you're out of alignment, you feel contraction. Not emotional contraction, structural contraction, like a door quietly closing. The third channel is boundary awareness. This is the rarest and the most misunderstood. It shows up in the liminal spaces, edges of sleep, deep rest, moments when the body releases while consciousness remains clear. There's no separation, no astral travel, no leaving the body. Just a recognition that awareness doesn't require the same level of physiological activation you thought it did. You can be deeply relaxed, almost asleep, and still fully present. This continuity of awareness across states is what signals that the observer is no longer collapsing. Most people touch this channel and immediately try to hold on to it, turn it into a practice, make it happen on demand. And the moment they do, it vanishes. Because this channel only opens when there's no grasping, no trying, no effort to maintain anything. It's pure allowing. And allowing can't be practiced. It can only be permitted. These three channels aren't hierarchical. You don't progress from one to the next. They simply represent different ways the stabilized field receives information. Some days cognitive knowing dominates. Other days you live primarily through spatial sense. Sometimes boundary awareness flickers in and out. None of this needs to be tracked or optimized. The only thing that matters is whether the foundation stays stable when these channels open. Here's what I need you to understand. Not every intense sensation belongs to these channels. The mind is brilliant at creating experiences that feel significant. Vivid imagery, emotional surges, bodily sensations that seem meaningful. These can all be the nervous system processing old patterns, the imagination filling gaps, or the ego creating drama to maintain a sense of specialness. The test isn't how intense the experience feels. The test is what happens after. If life becomes simpler, clearer, less burdened, the channel was real. If life becomes more complicated, if you feel a need to explain the experience to others, if you have to work to hold on to what happened, it was noise, not signal. Real awareness doesn't leave you with homework. It leaves you lighter. In this healing phase, you'll likely move through all three channels without trying to. Information will come through different routes depending on what's needed. And the beautiful thing is, you won't need to decode it anymore. You won't need to sit down and journal about what each message means. The information comes with its own context, its own application. It's already integrated by the time you become consciously aware of it. This is what it means to be stable enough to receive. Not that you're receiving more, but that what you receive can actually land without being distorted by your own interference. The healing isn't about fixing what was broken. It's about no longer breaking what's whole. Every spiritual teaching tells you to let go, release, surrender. But what they don't tell you is that trying to let go creates the very tension you're trying to release. It's like trying to relax by commanding yourself to relax. The command itself prevents relaxation. The same mechanism operates at the level of consciousness shifts. You cannot force yourself into readiness. You cannot manufacture stability through effort. Effort, by its very nature, creates instability. Here's the paradox at the heart of transformation. The moment you try to reach a state, you confirm that you're not already in it. That confirmation creates separation, and separation creates tension, and tension fragments your observational field. So you're using the very mechanism that prevents arrival to try to arrive. For years, you've been taught that change requires discipline, practice, commitment. And in the material world, that's often true. You want to build muscle, you lift weights consistently. You want to learn a language, you practice daily. Linear progression works for linear goals, but consciousness doesn't operate linearly. The observer doesn't improve through accumulation. It clarifies through subtraction. What needs to be subtracted? The constant monitoring, the perpetual self-correction, the endless inner dialogue about whether you're doing it right, feeling it right, understanding it right. All of that is interference masquerading as awareness. You think you're being responsible, staying conscious, maintaining vigilance, but what you're actually doing is preventing the system from self-regulating. True stability doesn't require supervision. It doesn't need you to hold it in place. When you stop trying to maintain a state, when you stop checking in to make sure you haven't lost something, the state that was always there beneath the effort reveals itself. Not as something you achieve, but as what you've always been when you weren't trying to be anything. This is why the healing phase often feels like doing less, not more. You stop meditating so hard. You stop affirming so desperately. You stop visualizing your desired reality with such intensity. Not because you've given up, but because you've recognized that all that effort was creating noise, and the signal you were trying so hard to hear was already there, waiting for the noise to stop. The mind hates this. The mind wants a method, a technique, a thing to do. Because doing feels productive. Doing creates the illusion of control, but in the domain of consciousness, doing is often the problem, not the solution. The more you do, the more you confirm that something's missing. The more you confirm something's missing, the more your field fragments to search for it. When you stop doing, a very particular kind of space opens up. Not empty space, available space. Space for information to arrive without being filtered through your agendas. Space for clarity to emerge without being shaped by your expectations. Space for reality to respond to what you actually are, rather than what you're trying to become. This doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you stop taking action in your life. It means your actions start coming from a different source, not from the part of you that's trying to fix, improve, or prove itself, from the part that simply responds to what's present. That responsiveness is faster, cleaner, more accurate than anything effort could produce. You'll know you're letting go of force when decisions start becoming simpler. Not easier, simpler. The overthinking drops away. The weighing of pros and cons becomes less necessary. You see an option, and you either move toward it or you don't. And both responses feel clean. No second guessing. No wondering if you're making a mistake. Just movement or stillness, both equally valid. You'll also notice that motivation changes texture. Before, motivation felt like pushing yourself forward. Now it feels like permission to move. There's a subtle but crucial difference. Pushing creates resistance. Permission creates flow. When you're pushing, You're fighting against some part of yourself that doesn't want to go. When you're permitting, all parts of you are aligned with the movement. Some directions that once seemed important will lose all energy. You won't have to decide to stop pursuing them. They'll simply fall away, like dead leaves from a tree. No drama, no sense of loss, just a quiet recognition that this path is no longer live. And other directions will open, not because you went looking for them, but because you stopped blocking them with effort. The mind will sometimes panic during this phase. It will tell you that without force, without constant effort, you'll stagnate, you'll lose ground, you'll fall behind. But this fear comes from the part of you that's still measuring progress linearly. It doesn't understand that consciousness moves in spirals, not lines. What looks like stagnation on the surface is often integration at depth. Here's something no one tells you. Most of your previous stagnation came from trying too hard. You were so busy adjusting your approach, correcting your mistakes, optimizing your process, that you never gave anything time to actually settle. You kept stirring the water, wondering why it wouldn't clear. The healing phase is when you finally stop stirring, and clarity doesn't come because you found the right technique. It comes because you stopped applying techniques altogether. This can be disorienting at first. You're used to tracking your state, monitoring your progress, checking to see if you're still on the path. When that compulsion fades, you might feel lost. But you're not lost. For the first time, you're not following a map someone else drew. You're moving according to what's actually present, not according to what you think should be present. Take a moment right now. Pause the need to understand this perfectly. Pause the urge to apply this immediately. Just notice. Can you be here without needing this moment to become something else? Can you read these words without pressure to extract their meaning? Can you simply be present with what is, exactly as it is, without improvement? If you can, even for a few seconds, that's the felt sense of non-forcing. That's what stability feels like. Not elevated, not special, not transformed, just here, without resistance, without the need to be anywhere else. And from that simple presence, everything else becomes possible. The moment a shift happens, your mind wants to grab it, hold it, turn it into an identity. This is where most people lose what they've gained. Not because the shift wasn't real, but because they tried to own it. And the moment you try to own a shift, you step out of the state that allowed it to occur. Think about the last time you felt truly clear. Maybe it was after a deep conversation. Maybe it was in nature. Maybe it was for no reason at all. You were just suddenly here, present, aligned. And then what happened? A thought arose. This is it. This is what I've been looking for. I need to remember this. I need to keep this. And the moment that thought arrived, the clarity began to fade. Not because you did something wrong, but because you moved from experiencing to possessing. You moved from being the space where clarity exists to being someone who has clarity. And someone who has something must protect it, must maintain it, must make sure they don't lose it. That protection creates the very fragmentation you're trying to avoid. You start monitoring your state, checking to see if you're still clear, comparing this moment to that moment when you felt so aligned, wondering if you're doing the right things to keep the state alive. All of that monitoring is interference. All of that checking fragments the field. And slowly, the clarity you were trying to preserve gets buried under the effort to preserve it. This is the trap of identification. When an experience becomes part of how you see yourself, It's no longer free to move. It gets frozen in time, turned into a memory you keep returning to, a standard you keep measuring yourself against. I used to feel so clear. Why don't I feel that way now? What did I do differently back then? These questions seem innocent, but they're actually pulling you out of presence and into a constructed image of who you think you should be. True shifts don't need to be remembered. They integrate so fully into how you operate that they become invisible. You don't think about breathing. You don't think about how your heart beats. These are integrated processes. And when a consciousness shift fully integrates, it becomes equally automatic. You don't reference it. You don't recall it. You just live differently, and the difference shows in your choices, not in your stories. Here's how you know identification has formed. You feel the need to tell people about the shift, not in a natural sharing way, but in a way that seeks confirmation. You want them to acknowledge that yes, you've changed. Yes, you've grown. Yes, you're different now. That need for external validation signals that the shift hasn't actually landed. It's still hovering at the level of concept, not embodiment. Another sign, you start feeling separate from people who haven't gotten it yet. You look at others and think, if they only understood what I understand, if they only saw what I see. That subtle sense of superiority, even when it's wrapped in compassion, is the ego constructing a new identity. And any identity, even a spiritual one, creates separation. Separation from what is. Separation from others. Separation from the simplicity that was emerging before the identity formed. The deepest shifts always return you to ordinariness. They don't make you special. They make you more human, more relatable, more comfortable with not knowing. If a shift makes you feel elevated above others, something's been misunderstood. The experience was real, but the interpretation has been hijacked by the part of you that needs to be someone. Letting go of identification isn't about rejecting your experiences. It's about not carrying them forward as badges, not using them as proof of your progress, not referencing them to confirm you're on the right track. When you stop doing that, something interesting happens. The shifts can return, but in a new form. Less noticeable, less named, more integrated into the fabric of daily living. You'll find yourself making different choices without analyzing why. Ending conversations earlier when they no longer serve. Walking away from situations that once would have hooked you. Saying no without guilt. Yes without overexcitement. These small adjustments are the real evidence of transformation. Not the peak experiences, but the 1,000 tiny recalibrations that happen when you're no longer performing a version of yourself. At this stage of your healing phase, the invitation is simple. Let the shifts be. Let the moments of clarity come and go without trying to capture them. Let yourself change without announcing the change. Let growth happen so quietly that even you don't notice it until you look back months later and realize you're no longer living the same way. When you drop the need to be someone who has shifted, you become available to actually shift. Not once, but continuously. Not into a new fixed state, but into an ongoing fluidity that responds to life in real time. This is what stability actually means. Not holding a particular state, but being flexible enough to move with whatever's arising without losing your center. If you're listening to this and feeling like you're becoming less instead of more, like you're losing ground instead of gaining it, that's actually a positive sign. The inflation is leaving. The constructed spiritual identity is dissolving. What remains when all of that falls away isn't nothing. It's the actual you, the one who doesn't need to be impressive, doesn't need to have it figured out, doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, including yourself. And from that humble, ordinary ground, real transformation becomes possible. Not because you're trying to transform, but because you've stopped preventing transformation by trying to own it. Reality doesn't move at the speed of expectation. This is what creates most of the confusion in the healing phase. You've stabilized, you're ready to receive, and then nothing dramatic happens. No sudden windfall, no instant manifestation, no radical restructuring of your external circumstances. And the mind starts to wonder, did I do something wrong? Am I actually ready? Was this whole thing just a story I told myself? But here's what's actually happening. Reality is responding. Just not in the timeline you imagined, and not in the way you expected. The response comes first as reorganization, not as reward. What no longer fits starts to fall away. What does fit begins to reveal itself, but slowly, subtly, through opportunities you would have missed before because you were too busy looking for something bigger. The first change you'll notice is in how you approach decisions. Where you used to stand paralyzed by options, weighing every possibility, trying to predict outcomes, now you find yourself moving through choices with surprising ease. Not because every choice feels obviously right, but because you're no longer pulled by the secondary fears that used to dominate. Fear of missing out, fear of making mistakes, fear of what others will think. Those fears don't disappear entirely. They still arise, but they don't take control anymore. They pass through like weather, and underneath them, you sense what actually fits for you in this moment. That sensing doesn't come with guarantees. It doesn't promise that this choice will lead to success or happiness. It simply indicates alignment. This way has energy, that way doesn't. And you trust the information enough to move. Reality responds to that trust. Not immediately, but cumulatively. Each time you honor the quiet knowing instead of overriding it with logic or fear, the field registers that you're listening. And slowly, the feedback becomes more precise. Clearer signals, earlier warnings when you're drifting off course, faster confirmation when you're aligned. But here's where people often stumble. They expect reality to respond with additions, new opportunities, more abundance, better relationships. And sometimes that happens. But more often, reality responds with subtractions. Things that were barely holding together finally break. Relationships that survived on momentum alone naturally drift apart. Jobs that tolerated your presence but didn't truly value you suddenly become intolerable. This isn't punishment. This is precision. Reality isn't taking things away to teach you a lesson. It's removing what was blocking clearer alignment. But the mind, conditioned to see loss as failure, panics. I thought I was ready to receive. Why is everything falling apart? Everything isn't falling apart. What wasn't built on stable ground is finally being revealed as such. And that revelation, while uncomfortable, is deeply productive. Space is not the same as emptiness. When something falls away, it leaves space, and space allows for more precise movement. You're no longer navigating around structures that don't serve you. You're no longer spending energy maintaining situations that were slowly draining you. The energy returns, not dramatically, but you notice you're less tired, less scattered, more available for what actually matters. Reality also responds through friction. This confuses people because they think alignment means everything should flow smoothly. But alignment doesn't remove all resistance. It makes misalignment visible much faster. Before, you might stay in a misaligned conversation for hours before feeling drained. Now you feel the drain within minutes. That's not regression. That's increased sensitivity. Your system has become precise enough to detect incongruence early. The gift of early friction is that you can course correct without massive loss. You don't invest months in a project before realizing it's off track. You don't stay in relationships years past their natural end. You feel the friction, you honor it, and you adjust. No drama, no blame, just gentle recalibration. There's another form of response that's easy to overlook: synchronization. Not the magical kind where you think of someone and they call. The practical kind where the next step appears exactly when you need it, but only after you've completed the current step. You're not searching for opportunities, yet relevant ones appear. You're not forcing connections, yet meaningful encounters happen. This doesn't feel miraculous. It feels reasonable, almost obvious, as if life is organized in a way that makes sense, and you're finally tuned to the frequency where that organization is visible. The skeptical mind dismisses this as coincidence. But coincidence repeated consistently across multiple domains of life becomes pattern. And pattern, when trusted, becomes a form of navigation. Now, what we're covering here, these three channels, this stabilization process, this is really just the foundation of a much larger transmission system. If you're feeling like there's something deeper here, like these awareness channels are part of a complete framework you haven't fully seen yet, you're picking up on exactly what I've mapped out in Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery. In that book, I break down the 9 master frequencies that take you from survival static to conscious broadcasting, from seeking to being the frequency itself. It's linked in the pinned comment below. As reality's responses become more consistent, something shifts in how you relate to time. Before, time felt like something chasing you. Pressure to act now or miss your chance. Urgency to figure things out before it's too late. But in the healing phase, time starts to feel available. Not infinite. You're still aware of mortality, of seasons, of windows that open and close. But the frantic quality dissolves. You begin to sense your own natural pace. Sometimes that pace is faster than you thought it would be. Sometimes it's slower. But it's yours, not borrowed from someone else's timeline or imposed by external pressure. And when you move at your own pace, energy stops leaking. You're no longer over-functioning in some areas to compensate for under-functioning in others. You do what fits when it fits, and rest when rest is needed. This is when people start to notice you've changed, not because you're announcing it, but because your energy is different. You're less reactive, less available for drama, less interested in performing, more direct but not harsh, more boundaried but not defensive. The change shows in micro-behaviors, how quickly you end phone calls, how much you share in casual conversations, what you say yes to, what you quietly decline. Reality has responded. Not with a single dramatic event, but with 1,000 small adjustments that accumulate into a completely different trajectory. You're still living your life, still working, relating, functioning, but the internal experience has shifted from forcing to flowing, from managing to allowing, from controlling to responding. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need to understand how it happened. You don't need to track every variable, decode every signal, explain every change. you simply notice that life feels different. Lighter, more honest, less effortful. And that difference, unspoken and unclaimed, is the most reliable evidence that your healing phase is doing exactly what it's designed to do. When the internal timeline stabilizes, the external world doesn't suddenly announce that you've arrived. There's no moment where everything clicks into place and you know with absolute certainty that you're on track. What happens instead is far more subtle, and because it's subtle, most people miss it entirely. They're still waiting for the big confirmation while living inside the very stability they've been seeking. The first indicator is the disappearance of urgency, not ambition. You still have desires, intentions, directions you want to move toward. But the frantic undercurrent that used to pulse beneath everything you did, that constant whisper of, "Hurry up or you'll miss it," that voice goes quiet. You still move forward, but you're no longer running from the fear of being left behind. This shift in urgency changes how you experience daily life. Small tasks that used to feel heavy with implication, replying to messages, making decisions, choosing what to focus on, become simple again. You respond when you respond. You decide when enough clarity has arrived. You focus on what's in front of you without constantly wondering if you should be doing something else instead. Alongside this comes a clearer sense of direction, not a 5-year plan, not a detailed map of where you'll be and who you'll become. Direction here means something simpler. You know where you are now, and you can sense what the next step is. Just the next step, not the whole staircase. And that's enough. You're no longer trying to see the entire path before you're willing to take a single step. This creates a different relationship with uncertainty. Before, not knowing felt dangerous. It meant you might make the wrong choice, waste time, end up somewhere you didn't want to be. Now, not knowing feels neutral. Some things are clear, some things aren't, and the unclear things don't create the same level of anxiety. You trust that clarity will arrive when it's needed, not before. Your information diet changes too. You'll notice you're consuming less content, less scrolling through perspectives, less searching for the next insight, less collecting tools and frameworks and teachings. Not because you've learned everything, but because you're no longer in deficit. You're not trying to fill a gap. When information is genuinely useful, you receive it. When it's just noise, you sense that earlier and move on. Discernment gets sharper. You can feel the difference between content that actually serves your current phase and content that's just stimulating your mind without adding value. This isn't judgment. You're not labeling things as good or bad. You're simply more attuned to what fits and what doesn't. And what doesn't fit loses its pull naturally. The emotional landscape shifts as well. Emotions still move through you. Sadness, joy, frustration, excitement. But their intensity becomes proportional to what's actually happening. Small disappointments don't spiral into narratives about your worth. Small wins don't get inflated into proof that you finally made it. Things happen. You feel appropriate responses. The feelings move through and complete themselves. This proportionality is one of the clearest signs of timeline stability. When the observer is stable, emotional reactions match the actual significance of events. You're no longer amplifying or minimizing based on old patterns. You're responding to what is, not to what your history told you it means. Another overlooked change. The need to perform drops away. You stop trying to demonstrate that you're awake, evolved, conscious, on the path. Not because you're hiding, but because there's nothing to prove. You don't need others to validate your state. You don't need to remind yourself that you've changed. The changes show up in behavior so naturally that you barely notice them yourself until something from your old pattern would have triggered you and you realize it didn't. You responded differently without planning to. You'll also find yourself more comfortable with questions that have no immediate answer. Where you used to rush to fill gaps with speculation or planning, now you can let questions sit. "I don't know yet" becomes a complete sentence, not a problem to solve. And in that spaciousness around not knowing, actual answers have room to emerge when they're ready. Time itself feels different. Less like something chasing you, more like a medium you move through at your own rhythm. You're aware that windows open and close, that seasons change, that there's a natural timing to things. But you're not controlled by urgency anymore. You don't feel like you're running out of time. You feel like you're inside time, working with it instead of against it. Effort changes texture too. You still work, still focus, still apply energy to projects and goals. But the effort is clean now. No underlying strain, no pushing against yourself. When you're done working, you can fully release without needing hours to recover. You're not depleting yourself and then scrambling to refill. You're moving with sustainable energy. When friction appears, and it will, you don't interpret it as failure anymore. You treat it as information. This direction isn't flowing. This conversation isn't serving. This approach isn't working. The friction tells you where adjustment is needed, and you adjust earlier, more gently, with less loss. You're not avoiding all discomfort, but you're not grinding through misalignment to prove your commitment either. Some days you'll look back and realize you handled a situation that would have completely destabilized you months ago, and this time you moved through it with relative ease. Not because you're stronger, but because you're no longer fragmenting under pressure. The observer stayed whole, and when the observer stays whole, reality's feedback stays clear, and you navigate based on accurate information instead of reactive fear. These signs don't announce themselves. You won't wake up one day and realize my timeline has stabilized. You'll just notice over time that you're living differently. Less explanation, more action, less performance, more presence, less story, more movement, and that difference, quiet and unclaimed, is the evidence that you're no longer in the same loop you were circling before. The healing phase doesn't end with a graduation ceremony. It ends when you stop tracking it. When you're so integrated into living from this new ground that there's no separate healing phase to reference anymore. It's just life now. And life, when lived from stable observation, doesn't need to be named or celebrated or protected. It just continues, quietly, precisely, in rhythm with what's actually here. Awareness and meaning-making look similar on the surface, but their effects are completely different. This distinction matters more than almost anything else in the healing phase, because it determines whether what you're experiencing actually integrates or just becomes another layer of conceptual identity. Most people slip from one to the other without noticing, and then wonder why profound experiences don't seem to change how they live. When awareness arises, it doesn't demand anything from you. There's no urgency to capture it, explain it, or fit it into your existing framework. Information lands, and it sits there, stable, available. You don't feel like you've achieved something. You don't feel special. You just know something you didn't know before, and that knowing doesn't create pressure to do anything immediately. It's complete as it is. Meaning-making feels different. It starts with a similar opening, some insight, some shift in perception. But then the mind steps in to complete the story. This means I'm finally getting it. This means I've reached a new level. This confirms I'm on the right path. That narrative construction, that need to place the experience into a framework of personal progress, is where awareness gets converted into ego food. The clearest test is this: does the experience close questions or open them? Real awareness resolves uncertainty. You might not know what to do with the information yet, but you're no longer stuck in the question that was creating tension. The wondering stops. Not knowing becomes comfortable. Meaning-making does the opposite. It creates more questions. What does this mean for my future? How do I keep this state? What should I do differently now? The more you explain, the more explanation is required. Another marker is how you speak about what happened. When awareness is genuinely operating, there's little impulse to share. Not because you're being secretive, but because language feels insufficient. The experience completed itself internally. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't seek validation. But when meaning-making takes over, you feel compelled to tell the story. To describe what happened in a way that confirms it was significant, that makes others recognize you've changed, that proves the experience was real. This need for external confirmation reveals that the shift hasn't actually landed yet. It's still at the level of concept, not embodiment. True integration is wordless. It shows in behavior, not declaration. You stop doing certain things without announcing you're stopping. You start responding differently without explaining why. The change is so natural that even you barely notice it until much later. The behavioral impact is where awareness and meaning-making diverge most clearly. Awareness simplifies how you act. Fewer unnecessary conversations. Earlier exits from situations that don't serve. More selective use of time and energy. These adjustments happen organically, without internal negotiation. Meaning-making creates performative behavior, changing how you present yourself, adjusting your speech patterns, curating an image of who you think you've become. That performance requires constant maintenance, and anything requiring maintenance isn't stable. Here's what the mind does brilliantly. It builds frameworks that sound completely reasonable. It creates explanations that feel true. It constructs meaning that seems to fit. But reasonable doesn't equal accurate. The mind can justify almost anything if it serves the need to feel like progress is happening. Real awareness doesn't need reasonableness. It needs operational consistency. Does life actually get lighter? Do contradictions actually reduce? Is there less internal friction? If yes, awareness is present. If no, you're living in well-constructed meaning. One of the subtlest signs of awareness versus meaning-making is what happens to self-monitoring. When awareness integrates, you track your state less frequently. You're not constantly checking in. Am I still clear? Am I losing it? Am I doing this right? You return to living, and within that living, clarity expresses itself through ordinary moments. Meaning-making increases self-observation. You become hyper-aware of how you're doing, constantly measuring yourself against the image of who you think you should be now. That split attention, one part living, one part watching, is fragmentation disguised as self-awareness. Imagination isn't the enemy here. Imagination serves creativity, vision, possibility. The problem emerges when imagination fills in what isn't clear yet, when it completes stories before the actual ending arrives. Awareness can hold not knowing without discomfort. Meaning-making needs an answer, any answer, to resolve the tension of uncertainty. So the mind fabricates meaning to soothe itself, and that fabricated meaning becomes a filter that distorts everything that comes after. There's a capacity that develops as you distinguish these two. The ability to catch yourself right before the mind completes the story. Not to stop it forcefully, but to recognize the movement toward meaning-making early enough that you can simply pause. In that pause, the compulsion to explain usually fades on its own. You don't have to fight your imagination. You just stop letting it lead. As this distinction becomes clearer, you interpret less and live more. Not because you're becoming unconscious or indifferent, but because you're trusting reality's self-correcting nature. When coherence is maintained, you don't need to assign significance to every fluctuation. Some experiences matter, some don't. Some leave traces, some pass completely. And not everything has to become part of your personal mythology. This creates a particular kind of freedom. You're no longer carrying yourself as a project under construction. You're not measuring where you are on some imagined path. The path continues, but it doesn't need constant evaluation. Awareness doesn't accumulate, it updates. Each update clarifies the present moment. It doesn't add to your conceptual understanding. It removes what was obscuring direct perception. When you trust this process, you become less attracted to promises of deeper, higher, more intense experiences. You stop seeking peak states and start valuing baseline precision. Precision isn't dramatic. It doesn't create stories worth telling. It simply fits. It works. It allows life to function with less friction. And that friction reduction is worth more than 1,000 transcendent moments that don't actually change how you move through daily existence. Awareness doesn't need protection from imagination. It only needs to not be interfered with. When left alone, it stands on its own foundation. When it stands, it stops needing names, labels, explanations. At this point in your healing, the question shifts from, "What did I just experience?" to, "Is life operating with less resistance?" If the answer is yes, awareness is doing its work. If the answer is no, you're likely spending too much energy maintaining the story of awareness instead of living from it. This doesn't diminish the journey. It makes it real. Real shifts don't require belief. They don't require memory. They don't require you to hold on to them. They integrate so completely into how you function that they become invisible. And invisible shifts, the ones that leave no trace except changed behavior, are the only ones that last. Before you continue, I want to invite you to do something very simple. Take a moment and leave a comment with just one word. Any word that represents the energy you're choosing to receive in this healing phase. Not what you hope to receive, not what you're trying to manifest. Just the energy you're already becoming available to. Drop one word below. This isn't casual engagement. It's an energetic signature you're placing into the field. A quiet declaration that you're here, present, ready. Your word matters. Leave it below. And if this content is landing in a way that feels different from other things you've consumed, if it's touching something real without needing to create drama or promise impossible transformations, then I invite you to subscribe. Not just to this channel, but to this conversation. To this space where we're not performing awakening, we're actually living into it. One quiet recalibration at a time. The more of us who stabilize in this frequency, the clearer the signal becomes for everyone else trying to find their way out of the noise. The moment a shift crystallizes, the mind's first instinct is to claim ownership, to convert the experience into identity. This is the trap that catches almost everyone, and it happens so seamlessly that you don't even realize you've stepped into it until weeks later when you notice you're performing a version of yourself instead of living as yourself. Here's how it happens. Something shifts. You feel clearer, calmer, more present than you've felt in months, and immediately a thought arises. I'm someone who's clear now. I'm someone who gets it. I've reached a new level. That thought seems harmless, seems true even. But the moment you identify with the shift, you stop being in the state that allowed it and start being someone who had that state. And someone who had something must now maintain it, must protect it, must make sure they don't lose it. That protective stance creates exactly the tension that fragments the field. You start monitoring. Am I still clear? Did I lose it? What do I need to do to get back there? All of that monitoring is interference. All of that checking creates the instability you're trying to avoid. The shift itself was real. The clarity was genuine. But the moment you turned it into my clarity, into proof of progress, into a marker of who you are, you stepped out of the direct experience and into a conceptual relationship with the experience. And conceptual relationships can't sustain what was lived. One of the clearest signs that identification has formed is the impulse to tell people about the shift. Not natural sharing, not organic conversation. The specific need to describe what happened in a way that gets others to confirm it was significant. You want witnesses to your transformation. You want acknowledgement that yes, you've changed. Yes, you're different now. That need reveals that the shift is still being held at the identity level, not integrated at the being level. Another indicator. You start feeling subtly separate from people who haven't seen what you've seen. You look at their patterns, their struggles, their unconscious behaviors, and you think, if they only understood what I understand now. That sense of being ahead, even when wrapped in compassion, is ego creating a new form of separation. And separation always fragments the field. The deepest shifts don't elevate you. They return you to humanity. They make you more ordinary, not more special. More comfortable with not knowing. More at ease with being wrong. More available for the full range of human experience without needing to transcend any of it. If a shift makes you feel like you're on a different level than others, something's been misunderstood. The experience might have been real, but the interpretation got captured by the part of you that needs to be someone. Letting go of identification isn't about rejecting what happened. It's about not carrying it forward as a trophy, not referencing it to prove you're on track, not using it to confirm you're one of the people who gets it. When you stop feeding the identity, it dissolves naturally. And when it dissolves, something remarkable happens. The clarity can return, but in a completely integrated way. Less dramatic, less named, more woven into the fabric of how you simply are. At this stage of your healing, you might find yourself feeling more ordinary, less special, with less to say about your journey. The mind interprets this as regression. I was doing so well. What happened? Why don't I feel transformed anymore? But what's actually occurring is a return to flexibility, a return to not needing an image to protect, a return to being allowed to not know, to be confused, to make mistakes without it meaning you've lost your progress. These are signs of health, not failure. When you can be uncertain without panic, when you can be wrong without shame, when you can be ordinary without feeling like you've lost something precious, that's when identity has loosened its grip. And when identity loosens, you stop carrying the shift as something separate from yourself. It becomes how you live, unnamed, unmentioned, but present in every small choice. True transformation asks you to subtract, not add. Each layer of identity that falls reveals more of what was always there underneath the performance. More simplicity, more directness, more capacity to respond to what's actually present, instead of what you think should be present based on who you're trying to be. When there's no identity left to defend, observation returns to its natural ground. And from that ground, you can move through life without the constant weight of maintaining an image. You can change without announcing it. You can grow without tracking it. You can live without needing to prove to yourself or anyone else that you're living correctly. And here's what nobody tells you. That's when the real receiving begins. Not when you're trying to be ready, not when you're performing readiness, but when you've stopped trying altogether and you're just here, available, with no agenda except to respond honestly to what life presents. That's the healing phase at its fullest. That's the ground from which everything else becomes possible. The completion you're looking for won't arrive as a definitive moment. There will be no ceremony, no certificate, no clear boundary between healing phase and healed. What you'll notice instead, probably months from now, is that you stopped asking whether you were still in it. The question became irrelevant, not because you found an answer, but because the question itself completed its function and dissolved. This completion doesn't carry triumph, it carries precision. You won't feel like you've achieved something monumental. You'll simply realize you're no longer efforting to hold yourself in any particular state. The questions that once drove you forward. Am I doing this right? Am I far enough along? Am I finally there? Those questions will have lost their charge. Not because you answered them, but because they stopped being necessary. Life doesn't shrink when this happens. It gets closer. Ordinary moments start revealing a depth you overlooked before. A morning that holds nothing remarkable, yet nothing wrong. A conversation that isn't profound, but isn't false either. A workday that doesn't drain you, but doesn't excite you, and that's perfectly fine. You stop needing peak experiences to confirm you're living correctly. Alignment shows up in the smallest details, and those details don't require commentary. As your presence stabilizes here, something shifts in how you trust. Not blind faith, but trust built from repeated experience that when you don't interfere prematurely, information arrives exactly when it's needed, not before, which would create overwhelm, and not after, which would create crisis. Right on time. This isn't magical thinking, it's pattern recognition. You've watched it happen enough times that you stop second-guessing the timing. You don't need to see 10 steps ahead anymore. You only need clarity for the next one. And consistently, that's what arrives. Stop here, continue there, say no to this, say yes to that. The instructions are simple, almost too simple, which is why most people overlook them while searching for more complex guidance. But simple accumulates. Small, clear choices, made repeatedly over time, create entirely different trajectories. What once exhausted you reveals itself differently now. Most of your fatigue wasn't from the difficulty of tasks. It was from the constant self-correction, the perpetual internal negotiation, the exhausting maintenance of being who you thought you should be. When that maintenance ends, energy returns. Not in dramatic surges, but as sustainable availability. You can engage fully and then release fully, without that residue of incompletion that used to linger for days. You'll notice shifts in how you relate to people too. Not through withdrawal, but through clarity. You no longer feel compelled to explain yourself, convince others, or defend your choices. When alignment is present, you stay. When it's not, you leave earlier and with less guilt. Relationships stop being places to confirm your worth and become spaces to simply be present together. This doesn't create distance, it creates authenticity. Uncertainty becomes less threatening. You can move forward without guarantees. You can make choices without knowing if they're perfect. You can commit to directions while staying open to adjustment. This isn't recklessness, it's fluidity. You're responding to feedback in real time rather than trying to predict and control everything in advance. Mistakes happen, but you recognize them faster. Corrections become lighter. Consequences don't compound the way they used to. Looking back at the entire process, you'll see that nothing was actually added to you. No new abilities, no special powers, no elevated consciousness. Just layers of interference gradually falling away. Each layer that dropped made life slightly simpler. That simplicity isn't poverty, it's precision. It allows your energy to go where it's actually needed instead of scattering across the maintenance of images, states, and stories. True completion feels open, not closed. Open to days that don't require meaning. Open to choices that don't need theoretical justification. Open to living without constantly auditing whether you're doing it right. When the foundation stabilizes, that question disappears. And when it disappears, you don't feel incomplete. You feel light. This doesn't make you passive. It makes you responsive. You're not pushed by fear or pulled by fantasy. You respond to what's present. And because you're responding to what's actually there, rather than what you wish were there, you drift less. Not because you're more disciplined, but because you're no longer chasing directions that were never yours to begin with. At this point, there's nothing left to pursue internally. That doesn't mean life loses depth. Depth stops being found by going inward and starts being found by staying with what's happening without distorting it. You don't need to separate from life to observe it. You observe while living. And that allows awareness to continue without effort, without maintenance, without the fear that you'll lose it if you look away. This completion doesn't ask for remembrance. It doesn't need to be preserved or repeated. It maintains itself naturally, as long as you don't return to the habit of self-interference. And even when you do, because you will occasionally, nothing is permanently lost. You simply notice the interference earlier and stop. Not to return to a state, but to return to the ground that's been there all along. What remains isn't a conclusion. It's a way of being. Living with less noise, fewer stories, less need for validation, but with more clarity in the 1,000 small choices that actually shape a life. When you live this way, no one needs to announce that the healing phase is complete. There's nothing left to complete. Only presence, continuing quietly, precisely, exactly as needed for reality to meet you where you are. If what you've absorbed here feels like it needs to settle deeper, consider returning to this video tomorrow morning or the next day. Let it become part of your recalibration process. And if someone in your life is struggling to understand why things feel different for them right now, why the old patterns aren't working anymore, share this with them. That act of sharing doesn't just help them, It amplifies your own coherence, creates synchronicities in ways you won't immediately see, and strengthens the collective field of stabilized awareness we're all contributing to. Now, what we've explored here is the foundation, the stabilization that allows you to receive. But there's a natural next step in this process, and it's about what happens when you move beyond being ready to receive and start becoming the field itself. That shift from observer to observed, from receiver to transmitter, is what changes everything about how reality responds to you. The video on screen now breaks down exactly how that transformation occurs and what it means for your capacity to create from a completely different quantum foundation. Watch that next. It's the missing piece that completes what we've started here today.